So I'm going to start off with Mike. If you were sent back in time, it's a two-parter. If you were sent back in time to commentate, either on location or in a studio, a historical event, which event would you choose to commentate and why? Which historical figure would you choose to commentate with you and why? And if you could pick any historical figure that would travel to present day 2025 and appear on screen with you as a play-by-play for a week, who would you select and why?
I'm going to go with first in the 1800s. I picked the Gettysburg Address as my historical moment to go back and cover. And the person that I wanted to have cover it with me was Walter Cronkite. And I picked that for two reasons, because I think we're in kind of a similar time. And the Gettysburg Address is something that is really fascinating to me. And Abraham Lincoln is a very, very fascinating person. And I think he may be one of the most important people in our history. And here he was called in to consecrate this battlefield. And it is one of the most famous speeches in our country's history. And it really was meant to unify the country. And it really built on the Emancipation Proclamation. And a reason why I chose Walter Cronkite, he saw this country in the 1960s, and so you witnessed a lot of this through civil rights, through a very turbulent time. And I think that he was a guy that the people in this country really turned to, whether it was Vietnam or civil rights, to really get the news and to understand what was happening in our country. In all of that, he brought the Vietnam War to people's homes through television. And that all started with Walter Cronkite. Fast forward, this is going to seem a little bit odd, but I'm a great admirer of Winston Churchill. And I would love to have Winston Churchill accompany me to Donald Trump's inauguration. He was called by his country when nobody wanted that position. And what he did at Dunkirk and how he rallied his country and what he did to bring, basically Japan brought America into the war, but how he held everything together. And I think it would be fascinating to get his take on what Trump is going through right now. Also, to get his take on what is happening over in the Middle East and in Russia and Ukraine right now, what is happening in world events, because he was very prescient about what was happening over in Russia with the Iron Curtain and with Stalin, because he was pretty clear-eyed about what was happening over in Europe at the time.
And it got to the point of Vietnam that he couldn't stand it anymore, that essentially LBJ called him and said, "You're killing me out there. You're killing me out there because for the first time, people viewing you as the reliable Uncle Walty, someone we can count on and rely on, and now you're taking a stance on this one way or the other." And Cronkite had an interesting answer to him. He said, "If I reported the news in a way that wasn't honest to myself, I wouldn't be reporting it at all."
I would love to go back to the 1936 Olympics. I'm going to give you one that's sports. Jesse Owens. Mm-hmm. In front of, I will mention his name, Adolf Hitler. In his stead, him standing there watching Jesse Owens beat his German chosen humans that were going to destroy the world, that he had to have a tunnel built to the Berlin Coliseum through a neighborhood underneath it so he could get out of there unscathed. And I found that to be fascinating to me, that Hitler was so hated by the people that were behind him in regard to what was happening in the world. I would have liked to have welcomed the first man on the moon from the United States. I would like to have been able to be there when an American stepped down and said, "One small step for a man, one gigantic." Okay. First of all, I asked Alan Shepard, what was the golf ball he hit on the moon? You hit the most famous golf shot, longest golf shot in history, because it just flew and flew and flew. He said, "I scuffed the first one." He said, "That's the one you didn't see." And he went back to the 1800s. I'm going back to the 1700s. I'm going back to not July 4th, 1776. That's the Declaration of Independence. I'm not going back to the Constitution. I'm going back to the Bill of Rights and the first 10 amendments. And who would I have with me? Two people. Benjamin Franklin, because I think he was one of the most creative people in the history of the country. I would like for him to commentate on James Madison and Thomas Jefferson, whether he agreed with what they were doing. In fact, there were originally 19 amendments. That's what they were considering, 19 amendments. I think people should study the history of this country. What we're seeing in this country now is we're actually duplicating problems that have happened in the history of this country, but we're also dealing with the amendments of that Constitution. Madison was tasked with doing the amendments, and he referred to the Magna Carta. He referred to other historic documents, and his first amendment was there will be freedom of religion, that the government can interfere with religion, promote religion. The Second Amendment probably causes more problems in this country than any other subject other than the abortion issue. And that's for a person's right to arm himself. The Second Amendment starts off with, in order to have a full militia, because there was a concern that England was going to come back and fight a war with us, or they were going to be involved with anybody else. You've got to be able to bring together a full militia, which happened in 1812. But you've got to have people with guns. They only fired 2 shots, maybe 1 shot, but you need guns. That it was a right for people to bear arms. And no matter what I might feel about guns, the Supreme Court has ruled that the Second Amendment is a law in this country based on the Second Amendment. James Madison was opposed to the amendments. Thomas Jefferson turned him around on that subject. How did he turn him around? And the slavery issue. They both had slaves. I would like to discuss how you can write a document that says all people are equal, all men, forgive me, and yet violate that very sacred document yourself. So I think that Howard Cosell, with his legal background, and Benjamin Franklin, with his intelligence and creativity, and me as play-by-play guy saying, here's what's going on. I just think that we just had a better understanding of our forefathers and what they meant by everything that they were doing and saying. But what I found in my research is they didn't agree. They didn't agree any more than the Republicans and Democrats, Libertarian, and Green Party agree now. They had the same problems. They were trying to figure out what to do. They were using historic documents like the Magna Carta as an influence on what they were trying to do.
I don't know how I feel about, open carry and, once you get into that realm.
But guess what? Neither did the founding fathers.
Question for Woody and Mike. Don't we, it's a generalization, but don't we today turn on ourselves when there isn't a foreign enemy for us to direct our anger and angst towards? Don't we usually self-implode?
No, I was just going to say you were absolutely right. They turned inward. They turned to themselves.
Sure.
And they defeated themselves.
This is the second and final topic. It's a bit of a thought-provoking topic. The question I have for you is, have you ever observed something in your life and made a difference without taking action?
I was going to commit suicide in 2001. It turned out that I wasn't getting, it was not because depression was caused because I had diabetes. My father died of diabetes. I never wrote about it. I never talked about it to anybody. The Denver Broncos lost a rookie who committed suicide. And all the reports were, why would he commit suicide? He was a football player. And so I wrote a column saying, I know why he committed suicide. I was going to do it. And I revealed to the world, who cared whether I revealed it or not, but I revealed it. And I got probably 150,000 letters and phone calls and stuff of people who changed their mind. Because they said, I explained to them why people commit suicide.
You know, my recovery from alcohol and my walk with Jesus Christ have gone pretty much hand in hand. You know, what I'm doing now and working in the recovery community and getting out and telling my story as much as I can and being transparent, that I really feel like Christ is working through me. It's almost like I'm not doing the action, he's taking action through me. I want to help. I want to continue the conversation about mental health in this country, about addiction, about alcoholism, about suicide, about all the issues that people face in the world.
I never worked with this gentleman, but he was one of the writers for Celebrity Deathmatch, which was this fun clay-based animation show on MTV where they would take celebrities who had rivalries and kind of, it was an animation show where they put them against one another. They pit them against each other. And I always thought that would have been one hell of a matchup if we had Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and Patrick Henry, because those three hated each other's guts. And that is the truth.
Hamilton in there.
And you got to throw Hamilton in there. 1 point to Woody and Mike Gminski. I don't vote normally. If they can answer the following hypothetical questions. You guys could just jump in if you have an answer to this. Why do we wash bath towels? Aren't we clean when we use them?
Bacteria that is on your body is transferred to the towel.
Avi, I guess I should wash my bath towel then. It's been a while.
Me too. Same here as well. Why do they call a driveway not a driveway should be called a parkway, and a parkway should be called a driveway?
Yeah.
Woody, I want to live forever. So far, so good.
Yeah. I'm so glad of what you are doing here.
Oh, thank you.
Because I've always felt like, as a writer, that my only purpose is not to get you two to agree with me or disagree with me.
Sure.
All I want to do to readers is provoke them into thought. And you're doing that with the program you're doing.